welcome back to the Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast for the recap of the Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift Stage 7. If you're listening to podcast players, we also have the Vuelta recap of the first stage tied together, but on YouTube we do the live stream straight after the stage today, and tomorrow we'll do the same thing. The Vuelta stage finishes about 8 p.m. Hopefully they don't have any storms like last year and the light stays light enough in Portugal. I think it will. I think Portugal's supposed to actually be on British time zone, or maybe it is on British time zone because Spain isn't. Anyway, this was the first. I'm not going to call this a mountain stage. I still am going to call this a medium mountain stage. From Champagnol to Le Grand Bonnand, 167 Ks with one category, one climb. The longest climb of the day, the Col de la Croix de la Sierra, 12.2 Ks, 5.1%. That's in the first hour and a half. Then we've got some rolling hills, an intermediate sprint at 100 Ks in, and then two climbs to the finish, interrupted by a short little descent. Col de Saint-Jean de Sixte, 5.5 Ks, 5.2%. And then the Grand Bonnand, which is 8K. Oh, it really was 7Ks, 5%. And then it was like a K left. It was easy. And then the last 500 meters, 600 meters did kick up again. And as always, our Tour de France Femmes coverage is brought to you by our show partner, Join Cycling. A word on my 20-minute effort in a minute. Yeah, that's the real teaser. In a minute. But any news before the day, Benji? We had some abandons, no?
Yeah, we had some abandons. I'll go over the most important one, which is Charlotte Cole. She's out of the race before the stage starts, and that's a bit of a bummer, but it's also not illogical. Yes, she was still technically in the running for green, but mathematically she wasn't going to win mountain stages, so it wasn't likely to happen anyway. So Marianne Vos is basically locked for green if she finishes this race as a consequence of that. But even regardless of Cole stepping out of the race, Vos was still active for the green jersey today. So props on her for staying as active as possible for entertainment, I would say. There's a few other riders. Yeah, true. There's a few other riders that also left the race today. And there was one post by AG Insurance. On Twitter, they posted basically 3 different posts in one thread. And it said, she's had a great season so far, Kim Lacour, but it's unfortunate that she's had that crash, which impacted her race so far. They basically made 2 tweets, which made it sound like she was abandoning the race. And then the third tweet said, she's not abandoning, but she's staying in the race to help the team, which that's great. But for the first half of this entire race, I thought Kim Lacour was out of the race until I saw her on screen, and then I read the third tweet in the thread. Really confusing.
Yeah, she didn't look good the last couple of days compared to how she started, and this has been a strange race, I gotta say. Like, in terms of the attrition, it's so many riders just have not performed and have dropped out of GC for various reasons. I mean, she's not really a GC rider, but like Neve Bradbury crashed. Rihanna Marcus, something's wrong. She's nowhere. Like
Mechanical in the legs.
Mechanical in the legs. Meyering crash. Brunel's no good. Ludwig's no good. Neve Fisher Black, by her standards, she's on 7 minutes. It's like the biggest battle of attrition. And we got surprising, like Lippert somehow in the just about starting today in the top 10. And Lucinda Brand's 13th on 2 minutes. It's just, a real battle of attrition. And Vollering's indeed crashed and is sitting where she is. But also,
I feel like it does indicate more towards maybe not necessarily a battle of nutrition. Well, that's also a thing, but not necessarily battle of attrition, but also a battle of versatility a little bit. Because I do feel like when you talk about Lippert, etc., those are the kind of riders you would expect to still be close after a week of hilly stages combined with a small time trial with a medium mountain stage and not necessarily having hit the big mountain stages yet.
True,
so to me, it looks like that. Obviously, the crash has impacted stuff. Splits in the pelotons have impacted stuff. But anyway, that brings us to the start of today's race. Before we get to your story adventure about the watts you performed in your 20-minute stuff, let's talk about the early breakaway. Well, it wasn't necessarily an early breakaway. We spoke yesterday about the Col de la Croix de la Sierra, the first big climb on parcours, 60K into the race. And I gotta be honest, it was just Canyon and 2 other teams pacing on the climb. And at the top of the climb, we had Puck Pietersen sprinting against Hekira for the QOM points. And Peterson took those points ahead of Hikira, so that made it, at that point in the race, Hikira still had the jersey virtually by like 1 point over Peterson. So let's see what happens afterwards. And then a breakaway formed. Justin Hikira in the breakaway. Julie van der Velde, a teammate of hers for AG Insurance. Marianne Vos for green jersey or just to go on an adventure. Might as well at this point. Sarah Martin for Movistar. Sarah Roy. That's the one I should pronounce more in an English way, not Sarah Martin. Ruth Edwards for the US. Well, for Human Powered Health, that is. There was one chaser, Marte Berg Etzet from UNOX, but she kind of disappeared. So it's that 6 women group up the road that was really the breakaway of the day. And Marianne Vos takes 25 points at the IS. And that's the luck if she stays on the bike. As simple as that. Gap 4 minutes 30. Thoughts?
Yeah, I thought this was at a decent chance to win, mainly because Hikira has been really, really strong. And also no one's really going to sprint her like they were in the other...
Yeah.
Like Niamh Fisher-Black was putting her under pressure yesterday. So it was a really good break for her to be in, where she, like, to be honest, no one's going to touch her in this finish. And also, they're going to contribute because Vos wants to get to the IS. She probably wants to keep riding. Vos is actually 220 on GC, which is kind of crazy after this stage, nearly in the top 10. So it's a great break for her to be in. She's protected behind with actually quite a strong team with Giganti, who didn't, they didn't attack behind eventually. So actually it was perfect. I mean, AG Insurance, they just overperformed. Did they win a stage last year? No.
They did not win a stage last year. They had Mol Montpassio for GC last year. I think Justine Hikira won, was it Valenciana or Andalusia earlier this year? One of those Spanish 1 week races where she went for QOM and then eventually won the race accidentally. I remember something like that. But anyway, that aside, I feel like when it comes to AG Insurance and Phoenix, yes, Phoenix has won a stage with Puck Peterson in this race, but tactically they've been weaker than last year. I feel like...
I agree.
So Puck Peterson is more the brute force at this point. Pacing at the front of the group, an entire climb, stuff like that. She done that twice this race already, if not more than twice. And I also expected them in the breakaway on stage 1 to go for the first QOM, stuff like that. They haven't been necessarily there when it comes to QM against Justine Hikira outside of Puck Peterson now. I don't know why. I feel like I'd give AJ Insurance the one-up, considering both have a stage win. The one-up right now based on how the race is going, especially because Justine was in the QM jersey before this race. And we'll see if she strengthens that or not. But I want to hear it. How much did I predict for you when it comes to your 20-minute power? Was it 265-ish?
Nah, you overestimated. I got so lazy. So,
or I overestimated, or your test didn't go that well.
Correct. So I went back down to Girona. Well, not back down. I've never been there before. And yeah, I was riding with Seb. Did like 200 watts for like nearly 3 hours conversational pace, and joint cycling was like, hold on, that's like not really correlating to an FTP of 240, but that was at sea level. So joint cycling, it schedules you with a performance test. If it notices, for example, that in multiple on the app in your training program after every workout or ride, it gives you an RPE, or no, sorry, you tell Join what RPE the ride was. So 200 watts for like 2.5 hours, 245 in decent heat with Seb talking. I was like, I don't know, like a 4, 5. I did smash a few through a few Haribos, but and Join was like, that's not, something's up because like that should feel harder. Scheduled a performance test, and then we came up here, and then I was like, okay, I could go down to Laseu early in the cool at 500 meters and do it, but then I do all my training at 1500. So why would I then set my FTP? That's what I like about Join. It's like I also feel like I'm still a little bit in control in that I am making some decisions myself as well. I'm not just like with a coach who says do this, do that. I'm also like, no, that doesn't make sense to go and set my FTP at nearly sea level and then train at 1500. And so yeah, I did the effort on Aldino, did 250 for 20. Not that happy with it, but also I am kind of happy with it. 250 for 20.
I'll accept it.
Accept it?
But it's also, a single performance test doesn't mean much necessarily. That's just one indication of where you're roughly at. It could be that the next day you wake up and you do 255. Like,
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
perfectly possible. Slightly cooler conditions, slightly better conditions, whatever, you can do a little bit better. So I think
Can I do some
it's
excuses?
very. I want to hear the. But first, before I give you the excuse, I will give excuses for you. If you look at your roadway over the last 6-7 months of training, you've become significantly better. That's undoubtable. So whatever this test says, I don't care. You've gotten better.
Well, no, I did put the caveat is I did put 2 minutes into my record on that 20-minute. It's a 20-minute segment on a दिन. I did put 2 minutes into my previous record, so I beat my previous record by 20%, by 10%. So,
your power meter's on a reading. I'm telling you.
No, this one works. So this one's the. I did on the Cervelo. I did it with the Luke. What's the power meter on this? I should know. Quark. With the Quark Essen. And the giant one I did the previous one. I mean, I also compared the VAMs, so I think one of them is correct and one of them is nice for my ego. So maybe if I want to do, it would have been better for the Reed Benji to do it on the giant family to say, I did 320 watts for 20 minutes, but I don't trust that. That one's not so good. But yeah, I'm actually happy with how it's going because I've been after the tour. I've not done so much training. I just did what Jim said, just to keep going 3-4 hours and not regress. And now I've got time, I can keep training. So yeah, that's a long story and an update on me. I've basically kept my level the same, which I'm actually pretty happy about.
Time for an update on me. I did some Zwift races in the last couple of weeks. I won Zwift races in the last couple of weeks. Ooh la la. Form is coming up. I'm now actually moving in real life. So it's like a struggly period to train, which is actually easier with the Joint Cycling app because now I can basically see how far I'm getting behind percentage-wise. So in the weeks after my moving, which my moving should be done halfway next week on paper, we'll see if that works out or not. I should be able to catch up with that because of how versatile the training program is, you know?
Man, how long are you moving for? What are you moving? You're moving a palace. So much stuff you have.
Hey, I'm only moving on Monday. I just packed stuff this week.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
I planned it on Monday because of the rest day that doesn't exist. I don't know why I selected Monday.
Portugal, apparently it's connected to Spain by land, so there's no rest day for the Vuelta. But yeah, I'm really happy, and now I got time. Vuelta's kind of chill, and it's time now to kick on. And after keeping my fitness during the busiest period of the year for me, so I'm actually pretty happy with where I'm at, thanks to Join Cycling. Okay, breakaway Benji. It's been controlled by Canyon SRAM. They're pulling with Dygert. It's Vos takes the IS, green's over, as we said earlier, and it goes down to about 3 minutes, but then it stops, and we get to the last climb. Climb in 2 parts, a longer climb of 15Ks, let's say. Hakira basically says goodbye to everybody. Resplendent in the QAM pokers, says Vos and Sarah Martin, thank you for this dance, and leaves her behind. FDJ Suez start pacing, not with Ludwig, by the way. Did Ludwig pace, Benji?
I didn't see that. I didn't see Ludwig pace.
What's the point?
I don't know.
Anyway,
her level hasn't been good, but
yeah,
she
exactly.
can do is like help a bit.
Yeah. Anyway, they pace with Leah Cournier. They reduce it to 240. Grace Brown starts pacing. Then it goes down to 220, 2 minutes. And this is the first climb, the Saint-Jean de Six, the 5K, 5.2%. And the gap's gone down to 2 minutes, but then it stops. And I was like, Hakira is moving. So the next climb, 7K is 4%. FDJ are finished. There's no Canyon SRAM climbing domestique. Shabby's not here. There's Fisher Black for Vollering. Don't know what's going to happen. There is Royakis for Peterser, so they could do something. Gigante, an attacker. She's not going to chase her teammate in front. Mavi Garcia, maybe she does pace, but she actually doesn't today. And so it was actually looking very, very good for Hakira. But then, kind of strange, Benji, what happens here. I don't think it was a bad plan. It was just executed on the wrong place in the parkour.
Yeah.
We get to the roller before the last 7K climb actually kicks up. Fisher Black, no, sorry, not Fisher Black. Vollering attacks at 40 Ks an hour whilst Grace Brown is pinning it with Nuvidoma in her wheel on like a 1% drag before the climb. And then Fisher Black, she stops obviously because it doesn't achieve anything. And then Fisher Black counters also like on the flat. She's, a pure climber. And I think this could have been very effective, Benji. You know why? Because Niewiadoma and Peterson actually responded to Fisher Black's bait, and it got Vollering in the wheel of Niewiadoma. The problem was they're doing this on the 1% section before the actual climb starts.
Yeah, that's true. Like, if we dissect this, is Vollering attacking Niewiadoma here a good idea? I'm perfectly fine with that. Is doing that on a 1% segment a good idea? Maybe not. I think they were trying to play on the surprise of like, okay, we're not going to do a lead out for Vollering to have a surprise attack. But then again, they haven't necessarily done a lead out for Vollering's attacks in the past either. So when Vollering's attack doesn't work out, then Fisher Black counters, and I wasn't really sure what it was. Like, logically, it doesn't make sense because on paper, no one should react to Fisher Black because she's decades behind in GC.
But
like,
it does work.
Logically, but it does work because people do react to her. But when they do react to her, I feel like she switches to the right decision of starting to pace. But because this all was done on the plateau section before the last uphill kick, there's not much effect happening because Fisher Black, let's be honest about it, on a 1-2% segment, I'm sorry, but you're not doing any damage. Like, your absolute watts just aren't high enough for that. So it's more on the steep segments where Fisher Black can really make the difference. And I also think she kind of burns herself a little bit there. Because once we get to the Le Grand Bornal climb, the last 7.5 kilometers, Fisher Black is still at the front. She stops pacing. We get a counterattack by Arkea's Maeva Squibon. We've had her in the attack yesterday as well, I think, in the final or the day before. So she's been pretty active as well. And she goes off and there's no response to that. But then once the gap becomes 30 seconds, Fisher Black attacks again or attacks to pace. It was hard to figure out, you know?
I think they were trying the old 1-2. I think they were just trying the old 1-2. And but then Fisher Black cooked herself.
The old 1-2 works if you have two riders close enough on GC for them to respond to.
Yeah, but it would have worked because everyone was making mistakes chasing Fisher Black.
Yeah. It doesn't make sense either way. Like, it doesn't make sense to respond to Fisher Black. So as a consequence, it should make sense for Fisher Black to make that move. But because people respond to her, it does make sense.
Yeah, it's a bit of game theory. If you're dealing with irrational actors, then you taking a non-rational course of action yourself might be the rational course of action. So the problem is Fisher Black, I think, cooks herself and she gets dropped out of the group as some attacks start coming, like that Arkea attack. Niewiadoma, I sense panic here. I sense nervousness. Yeah. She really is not comfortable with Vollering in her wheel. She's looking around. It looks like Jonas with Pogačar, actually, in 23 Tour de France in the later mountain stages. And so she's isolated. I don't think she knows exactly what's the best option to do. And Vollering seems actually, after that initial attack, then it seems pretty calm. And then I was looking at who's going to do something. You could either have option A, Royaker's paces for Peterson, but Royaker's is on 108 in GC, so they do what I think is the correct action, which is Royaker's attacks.
Yeah.
Gets a gap. Someone else has to do something, whether it's Lebu, whether it's Muzic. I might have missed the Muzic attack. I think the Muzic attack was before Royaker's attack, actually, because I was like, Muzic also has to do something because this is the second day in a row. FDJ have paced all out. For what? I don't know exactly, but they've done it. So she also throws in a dig, but it's 5%. It's not that hard. The draft benefit's so big. These women are going 25 Ks an hour, 27 when they're attacking.
Today, this doesn't necessarily make sense. FDJ throwing everything in it for
go in the break.
But on the other ends, I do understand. I don't mind it too much because by maybe pacing with Brown on the climb, etc., they maybe reduce the accelerations that follow off the explosivity of what comes afterwards a little bit by having a tempo before that makes the explosivity a bit less. But tomorrow, it makes way more sense to do that for me on a 19.9 kilometer, 7% climb.
Yeah, and she did Muzic. She did gap most of the other second-tier GC contenders. She finishes behind the two big guns, Niewiadoma and Vollering. So it's not a terrible finish for her, but the problem for her is she finishes fifth, and yes, and then an attack from Royaker's comes. She's on 108, and Niewiadoma now she has to feel how Vollering's felt maybe the last 2 years. What do? You let Royaker's just go? I think you probably do,
Yeah.
I think you probably do, and then you say, okay, she's 108 behind. She's not going to take a minute for starters. One of Muzic, Garcia, Labu, one of them will blink 100% and pace.
And sorry, but even if Royakkers takes a minute and a half, if you're not confident that you can get 25 seconds back on Royakkers tomorrow, you ain't gonna win against Vollering on Glando and Alduez. So
yeah,
sometimes you gotta risk not pacing behind someone like Royakkers in this. I don't think Niewiadoma should have paced that down. It's too close to the finish line, and even if she takes a minute, shouldn't be scared of Royakkers, in my personal opinion. But
yeah, she was never going to take a minute.
She does do it.
She does.
Niewiadoma does pace down the Royakkers, close that out. In the meanwhile, by the way, can we say that Justine Hikira is still a minute 50 ahead, so she's riding off to the stage victory. We'll get to that in a little bit. Niewiadoma paces down Royakkers. She swings off the front in a hairpin to the outside. And in the inside, we see an attack from Demi Vollering. Demi Vollering goes to the front, and she starts smashing it with Niewiadoma kind of in the wheel.
I don't know. Yeah, Demi, Niewiadoma went to chase Royakkers initially for a little bit, and Demi's like, no, I'll attack you straight away, and then stopped, and then Niewiadoma keeps pacing, and then when actually Niewiadoma paced for a long time, there is no counter from Demi. So, it was a bit... I couldn't figure out exactly what everyone's plan was, but yeah, there's a few digs. Riolini tries one. Then when Riolini tried to have a dig, Vollering did respond really fast, and Kasia was not so quickly in the wheel, but then, we should say, Justine Hikira, she goes to win the stage comfortably. In fact, a stop-start action behind. I'm not even sure it made a difference. Like, if they got paced all out, could they have really taken 120 on her? Because that's the gap she wins by. A really, really impressive performance from the Belgian rider, the 28-year-old on AG Insurance. Like, she got a contract actually until the end of 26, so they know what they're dealing with here. She won. It was the biggest win of her career, the second win of her career. She won GC in Valenciana at the start of last year. But that was not the biggest race. Although she did beat she actually did beat some pretty good riders there.
Yeah, she was riding for the QM jersey, but accidentally won GC.
Yeah, she seemed to get, but in terms of climbing, she must be in her best ever shape. Like, I thought she was a sort of maybe an average hill classics rider. In the Giro d'Italia Donna, she was nothing special, to be honest. In fact, just average on the mountain stages. Catalunya, like, bad, really, on La Molina. She lost 3 minutes to Mariana Vos, and here she's in the best shape of her career. Like, she's putting 2 minutes into Vos on a 5K climb.
But also, it's with a clear goal. They're going for that QM jersey, and if a stage win potentially rises, they get that as well. And that's how this was delivered. She went in the breakaway for the QM points, and in the end, with Julie van der Velde also being in that breakaway to extend that gap. Great ride from her. Hikira, there's two ways to pronounce it. So, Justine Hikira is how it's written down, but there's other people in Belgium that are called Hikire, which has like the accent grave on the E. So because
French
there's
people?
no accent, I believe it's pronounced Justine Hikire. But she's West Flemish, and West Flemish people tend to talk French half throughout, especially when they're from the southern part of West Flanders. So it could still be Justine Hikire. So I'm going with Justine Hikire.
Where's she from?
Explanation.
She's from Isegem, which is what?
Yeah.
That's where the Flandrian Hotel is, no?
It's about nowhere near. It's about half an hour from my parents' home in West Flanders.
It's all pretty close.
It's near Ypres.
Oh no, that's not.
Roughly.
That is a different place.
Near Kortrijk.
Oh, so she's really from West Flanders.
Yes.
Okay. Anyway, huge win for her, huge win for the team, and well deserved. I love it when there's someone that's going for QM also gets rewarded with the stage. And behind Niewiadoma, she goes over the top, and she really tries to put it into Vollering, and there's a big tell here. She's really digging with 1K to go.
Yeah.
Vollering responds seated. Never like giving an inch in the wheel. Looks totally comfortable. And here's a very strange Niewiadoma. There's 10 bonies have gone from Hikira.
Yeah.
There's Squiban in the middle, the Arkea rider. Huge ride from her. I don't know where she lost 20 minutes, if she crashed or something, but she obviously can climb. So that she's taken 6 bonies. So Nuviodome, you got 2 options. You either catch the Arkea rider, in which case, if you lose the sprint, you lose 2-second delta. You live with it.
Yep.
Option B, Arkea rider's ahead. Now, maybe she doesn't know she's ahead. But option B, you just wait for the others like Music to come back. If they attack, it's not your problem. Vollering has to close them to go for the bonies, and you can sprint from Vollering's wheel. But I think she was trying to drop Vollering. When I look at the overhead, before it was 200 meters to go, if you look at the overhead, just before it cuts away back to Squiban, Nuviodome is attacking Vollering out of the saddle, and Vollering, and then cuts away, cuts back. Vollering then drops her in the last 100 meters when she sprints, and she takes the 4 bonus seconds and a big psychological blow. Probably a bit unlucky not to get a second back as well on the road, because there was a real gap. But yeah, Hakira wins Squiban second on 1:15. Vollering third, 1:23, wins the sprint ahead of Nuviodome 1:23. Music not far behind on 1:27. Toledo de Jong, huge performance again, 1:28. Peterson couldn't. The first signs of struggling appeared today in 7th, and Lebu, Royac, Riolini, Gigante, Meiring, Van Anrooy, Lotte Klaes. Who are you? Let me look up. Valentina Cavalar, I think she might have been a lightweight rower. She's 23. She got a long-term deal from Arkea. She finished in that group as well. Mavi Garcia actually got gapped. Kerbal lost a bit of time, 16 seconds. Not looking good for her tomorrow, I don't think.
Hey, she won a stage already, so I think Seratizid won't complain with whatever comes out of this race at this point. But I will say, wonderful stage by Hakira, wonderful second by Squibon, and between Vollering and Nuviodome, Vollering gapping Nuviodome at the finish, that's kind of what we expected going into today's stage, to be honest. We went over it yesterday expecting a bit of a sprint between Vollering, Nuviodome, and perhaps Petersen, who was gapped a little bit today. Does it in this stage mean much for tomorrow? Not necessarily. I still have the same feeling about tomorrow, that if Demi Vollering feels good, which she looks because she responded in the saddle and then eventually gapped Nuviodome on the line, to me that looks like tomorrow we'll see Col du Glandon and Alpe d'Huez, where Vollering should be able to drop Nuviodome, and the fact that Nuviodome tried to drop Vollering on this finish, to me that looks a lot like, okay, I'm not 100% sure that I have enough of a gap with 119 for tomorrow, so I want to see whether either I want a bit of time for GC, or I want at least the mental benefit of knowing that I dropped her today, or I can beat her before going into tomorrow's stage. So
yeah, it's a huge psychological blow, and to put someone off your wheel, it makes a big difference.
I don't mind her trying though, because let's be honest, in my personal opinion, with 119 going into tomorrow, Vollering's the favorite. So for Nuviodome to not try anything today would have been more of a feeling of, okay, 119, I feel confident going into the final stage with that. I don't know, I'd rather see someone that feels like they don't have enough time on someone in GC try and get more before the final day.
Yeah, I agree. Although how much time can you take, I guess. But the revised GC, Nuviodome is still leading. Peterson actually moves up 2 spots into second. She's on 27 seconds. Wait, who lost? Oh, wow. We forgot to mention Kristen Faulkner got, once I was right, she cannot climb at the level of these GC riders. She lost like 5.5 minutes today.
Jesus.
I mean, fair enough. She's a one-day specialist who was like overperforming. So yeah, she's done really well up to this point. Kerbal drops a spot into third on 37 seconds. Lebu moves up. She's on 101. De Jong on 109. Van Anrooy 112. Royac is 113. Vollering 115. It moves up 2 spots and 4 seconds on Nuviodome. Music 125. Hakira is into the top 10 on 127. I think she should just try sneak into the breakaway again tomorrow and see what happens. Lippert drops down. Riolini's on 149. Brand 201, Meiring 232, Gigante 3 minutes, Mavi Garcia 425, Bunel 615. Tomorrow's stage is the big one we've kind of all been waiting for, 150 Ks. I think this is the hardest mountain stage we've ever covered in women's cycling. It's harder than the Giro stage on to Blockhouse this year by a fair bit, I think. 150Ks opens with 2 climbs that don't even look like climbs. 5Ks, 4% descent, and then the Col de Tamis, 10Ks, 4%, which, that's where I think Hakira's got to try and get into a breakaway with some, like Vos is going to go in the breaks. And then there's a flat part of about 50Ks where I think you got to, if you're like her, that's where you got to try steal a march and get in the break.
You're saying Vos goes in the break. Why? Just for fun at this point, for prize money.
IS, and to get an advantage to maybe try keep her top 15 on GC.
I agree with that part, but IS, she's a decade ahead. Like, nothing can change anymore.
Yeah.
It's just for the prize money at this point.
You'd be surprised. 50Ks of flat, the advantage a group can take in women's cycling.
Yeah, that's true.
With no one chase. I mean, Bredevold will surely keep it somewhat under control. Or Dygert, indeed. And then we have the first beast of the day, Col du Glandon, which is 20 kilometers at 7.2%. It's in 2 parts. So actually, the first 8Ks is 7%. Then there's 3Ks recovery. And then the last 7Ks are very, very, very difficult. And the last 3Ks average 10.3% up to over 1,900 meters. That is extremely difficult. And we will see immediately gaps there. And probably Niewiadoma and Vollering alone, I would say, actually, maybe with Riolini. Then a step descent with a couple of actual hills in them. Flat valley of 10Ks, and then they do Alpe d'Huez, 14Ks, 8%. The hard part is, the hard Ks is 2Ks, about 9.5% halfway through. And then, I think Vollering either drops Niewiadoma in the 5th K or the 7th K. And takes the time she needs. She needs to take 1:11 on the road, and she should be able to do that if she's at a top level, I would say.
Yeah, certainly. If she's at her top level, she should win this race and GC on this stage. But do we know if Glandon is fully on TV? Because today's stage was not fully on TV, and I feel like the start of Glandon might not be on TV tomorrow. That's at least what I heard.
Alpe d'Huez should take them 50 minutes. How long from Glandon? Yeah, I don't think all of it will be televised. I think the coverage might start halfway Glandon.
It's a bummer in my opinion.
Yeah, I think they need to be more dynamic with this, because I saw some people saying today, why isn't there full coverage? It's like, to be honest, commercially, there is no reason to have full coverage for today's stage. There was no one even tried to go on a breakaway for the first 2 hours. What do you want to watch? People just riding side by side. The Dauphiné, also an 8-day stage race, does not have full coverage for every day. But we also lament the fact that they should have full coverage for the weekend stages when there's always crazy action. Same with Pays Vasco last stage. So, I got no problem with some stages not being covered in full, but
this one should. Or at least before
Glandon. Yeah, before Glandon, it's going to kick off. So we'll see. It's going to be a fantastic stage. We might even see attacks on the descent, or like we saw last year, Niewiadoma went clear before the Tourmalet on the descent when Van Vleuten and Vollering were looking at each other. I think it's going to be a fantastic stage.
Now she's going to be the one that's looked at.
I think, it's a different, it really is different. Do
you see World? Sorry, 19.9 kilometers, 7.2%. The last 3 kilometers is very hard. Do you believe in a reality where one of the two already gets separation by the top of Glandon?
Yeah, I think it's possible Riolini also starts pacing really hard on top of Glandon, because that's the steepest 10 minutes of the whole course, and it's up high. So if I was Riolini, especially if there's a group of 5 or 6 and she's isolated, which she probably will be, if she gets to that area of Glandon and it's a group of 5 or 6 and I'm Riolini, I want to reduce it to Vollering or Niewiadoma, because she can be dropped on the descent if the group of 6 starts to push, and she's fucked. So,
but SD Works does need to change the way they attack or launch Vollering, in my opinion. It needs to just be a simple train, one by one, before Vollering goes. And arguably, you can use FDG as well, because they're destined to start pacing at the foot of Glandon for Evita Music.
Yeah, I mean, Fisher Black, if she's there for those steep Ks of Glandon, she just needs to do 5 minutes super hard. And it's not complicated. Like, it really is not, when you have the If you have the best rider in the world, you just go 1, 2, 3, bang. So,
Yep.
But it's just where Vollering needs to go. It's 1 minute. So does she really need to go on Glandon? To be honest, I would test Niewiadoma.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, it's so steep. I would test her.
I think so as well. Now, Justine Hekir has 41 points in the QM classification. Vollering has 7 points. That's a gap of 34. Then we look at Niewiadoma. She's on 30 behind. Tomorrow, Hekira needs to go in the breakaway instantly to get the second cat climb.
I'm in the break just to get QM points. Oh no, I'm now in a valley for an hour and a half with 10 rouleurs trying to get an advantage to not OTL. Oh, I'm starting Glandon with a 5-minute lead. That's what Hekira needs to do.
Yeah, and especially because when she gets Tamir, that means 5 extra points, which means she's got 39 points on Vollering and 35 points on Niewiadoma, and then get as close as possible on Glandon. And if you have that, then you win QM.
If she takes some points on Glandon and gets maximum earlier, she should win, right?
Yep.
So yeah, she's just got to get ahead before Glandon. She no way she's gonna follow the big guns. Yep. I mean, even if, I don't know how many points it descends down. Even if she comes, say they go past her, but she started with an advantage and she comes 5th, I think she's still going to take enough points because it's HC. So
I think so.
She doesn't need to be first on Glandon to win QOM. I think, yeah, I can't wait to watch. Luke says there's 3 hours of coverage tomorrow, so Glandon should be live.
Oh, okay, good.
At least the majority of it. I'd say that'll start at the base, maybe. I think Glandon's going to take them an hour.
3 hours of coverage. Does that include the post-race coverage and the pre-race interview crap?
I don't know. Luke says no. So I think we should be gravy. I think we should see most of the action. All right, that's the recap of Stage 7 of the Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift. And
wins tomorrow.
Demi. Ice cold. GC. Demi.
I agree.
And then she announces in the post-race presser that she's moving to FDJ Suez.
On the podium of the Tour de France Femmes.
To be honest, respect to Delcourt. He said, we respect the sponsors. We're not going to announce anything during the tour. Like,
yeah,
what is, I don't know, what does he owe SD Works? Fuck him.
Imagine if he says that, if he's like, oh, and then she's not even going to FDJ.
Yeah, and he's like announces a French 19-year-old Neo Pro. Yeah, he's like, I respect the contracts with Eglantine Raya, the DSM right. She actually, I don't know what happened to her. She has a quicker time on Monde than Julie Eglantine Raya. She has a quicker time on Monde in juniors in Occitanie than Julie Begot and Kat Ferguson, and I don't know what happened, but she's young. So, okay, we'll go to the Vuelta coverage now. Thanks for listening as always.